back to the scene. So now here, this play button is how you can test your game. You press this play button, it'll launch a new browser, and here's our dude walking around. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and in this video, there's going to be a series of videos we're going to look at using Phaser Editor 2D. So Phaser Editor 2D, as you can see right here, we have on their website, phasereditor2d.com. It's a web-based IDE for making your Phaser games. So it comes with, looks like this. It comes with a scene editor and a code editor in the inside of it. So it's sort of like Unity or many other engines you've used that come with an editor that let you position game objects in the world. Unreal has this, many other engines, Godot, Coco's Creator. Probably not naming some as well. There's a lot that have these types of tools for you to make your game by laying out your objects in the scene and adding or adjusting properties, configuring properties, adding components, various things like that. So we're going to recreate the memory match game that we did in code using Phaser Editor so that you can see how we can use prefabs, components, the editor in general, how to create game objects, how to place them around, move them around, and then how to edit code inside Phaser Editor. Now, Phaser Editor allows you to use VS Code, but in this series, we're just going to use the built-in Monaco editor inside Phaser Editor. So I'll show you all of this, including how to start up Phaser Editor. So this is their website, and if you go there, you can download it by hitting Get Installer. So Phaser Editor 2D is free for up to 70 items in your project, I believe. Let's go to pricing here. Yes, 70,000 a project. That is plenty for any demo games you're making, and it's plenty for memory match as well. Then you can buy a 1-year, 2-year, and or a lifetime license, and other options here. And if you're on a team, there's team discounts too. You can check that out as well. This tool is, of course, very useful to save you time if you're working on professional products that you want to ship your games as fast as you can without having to do a whole lot of manual stuff in code to place items or put UI items into your scene. So Phaser Editor is great for that. So we'll get started. So you go and get your installer here. You can just download either Windows, Mac, or Linux. So I'm on a Mac, and I already have this downloaded and installed. So in order to launch it, Phaser Editor is launched from the command line. So here's my command line, and now I'm in the Phaser Editor folder. I put it in my applications folder. If you're in Windows, you can do something similar. Just go to wherever the downloaded zip is where you downloaded the Phaser Editor binary. I'll just do this to show you. There's a Phaser Editor 2D binary, and then you're gonna wanna run Phaser Editor 2D. And so now I have a desktop and enable advanced JS editor on so that I have Monaco editor that knows the whole project. So I recommend you use these two settings. And from there, you run that command. So you run that command, and now it's running at localhost port 1959, which we have here. So I'm going to just refresh this. I already had it running. All right, so this is what the initial game project you're going to have. But this is the demo Phaser Editor project. So let's see, if I press T, this is the translate tool. So these are the tools up here. You have scale, rotate. You can change the origin. So this is the set origin that you would use in code. We're not really going to use this too much. Usually the center is fine. This is, which one tool is this? This is the multi-select tool. Cool. So oftentimes you'll be moving your items around. So with the translate tool, right? Yep. You can move it on the x-axis only by dragging the red arrow, and then the y by dragging the green arrow. And then to move the item around is not just clicking on it. It's clicking this yellow dot in the center. That will move it wherever you want that you have your mouse. Same for text here, same idea. And now if you want to pan around, you can press space, And then you can pan your scene view, and we can adjust these two, more room. You click right click here anywhere in the scene. You can also see the controls, tools. So there's the other, you can get the tools from here basically. So pan is here, but it wasn't up here. There's the resized house sprite tool. So let's just start using it to get a feel for how this works. So let's actually full screen Chrome. Now, so I've used this a bit and I've created a memory match game already just so that I can get a feel for how this works. And we're going to go through the docs as we go here. These are the official Phaser editor docs. So this is going to be a bit of learning in public. So I'm going to recommend you to read this article if you're interested from Swix at swix.io. He's got a lot of interesting stuff. But the idea of learning in public is to basically document and show what you're doing as you're learning it. So Phaser editor, I am still learning it. And there's a lot more that I'm doing with it. So you're going to get to watch as I learn some of these things and show you how to use it at the same time. So you go to swix.io, that's SWYX.io. This is to learn in public. You can just type this URL. We'll link it in the description notes below. And he's got a lot more writing, actually. That is interesting. Let's go to swix.io here. This must be a single page app. He has a book that's interesting if you're looking to become a developer, the Coding Career Handbook. But there's many things. I will just leave it to you here. This is the Coding Career Handbook by Swix. All right, so now let's start. We're using the Sokoban assets to create memory match like we've done before. We're going to follow the memory match guide here. Right here, go to complete series. We start at part 1. We're going to follow our own guide actually, and then adapt the code for Phaser editor and the concept as well. Since we have prefabs, components, and different other things, we're going to do it the Phaser editor way since we have an editor. All right, so first let's make a new project. So over here. So new project, select, let's name this memory match, just call this Phaser editor. Let's select the basic JavaScript project, create project, okay. Now here we go, looks the same. Good, this is the memory match project. So now we can also just delete this from the scene so we don't need it. Delete may work. I do seem to have a bit of an issue deleting on Mac, but I can just cut them and they're gone. So if you are having that problem, you can just cut them. I'm sure there will be a fix for that. Okay, so next we have this level.js and level.scene. So let's save the scene by pressing Control S. And we have this scene file. So this scene file is going to generate our level.js scene code. So let's open this level.js scene here. And there's going to be code that is auto-generated by Phaser editor. So like this will be the create method will be. And wherever it says in this comments here, start user created code, I think, or user constructor code, you can write your own code between these two comments. Same thing down here. You can also write at the end of the file or at the top of the file. Now first, let's actually load some pictures here. So this is the assets folder, and let's make this bigger. This is you can see your project files here. If you've used Unity, this is probably similar. You've got your outline or the hierarchy or the scene hierarchy here, the inspector on the right, your project files down here, and then this shows you what you've selected. This is the blocks rather. So the blocks are actually what you can use in the scene. You can drag and drop this into the scene, for example. Let's delete that. So now let's add some files. So new file. So when you add files, they're going to be uploaded to here. Since this is run in the web browser, the upload method is how you get files here. You probably could find this project on your computer because all the code is, all the project files are on your computer. You could probably throw them into the folder from your computer, but we'll just do it this way. If you do it the other way, you may have to refresh or something so that Phaser editor can notice that the files are there. Your best bet is to just do it through this editor. So let's create new upload files. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to hit browse down here to browse our computer. files. And so these are some animals. We'll do that later. So these are just a bunch of Kenney projects or Kenney assets that I have. So we want the Sokoban assets, Sokoban pack. Now we're just going to use individual PNGs. You could also use the sprite sheet, and that'll work fine as well. But just for simplicity here, and in case you don't have a sprite sheet in your particular setup for the game you're making, I'm going to use the individual PNG files. I'll go with default size. So we're going to use, let's do the player. So this is the player walking, this is back, so we need these four. So 2, 3, 4, that's the player facing up walk. Let's do that. Now let's upload those files. Good. Let's do this again, upload files. Now let's look for some other ones that we need. So this is that. Okay, so we need 23, 24, and 1. Upload. And then more. So we have walking up, walking down. Now we're going to need walking left and right. Let's see where that is. There we go. Okay, 16 to 11. Open. Upload 6 files. Okay, here we go. So we have these files. And we're going to want to import them as images to our asset pack. So we haven't covered this much here in our other videos, but Phaser has another way of loading things called asset packs, where if you use Unity, it's conceptually similar to asset bundles. Basically, you put all your files in into one manifest, and then it'll load them all at the same time for you without you having in the code go this dot load dot image dot sound whatever. So we're going to import these into this asset pack file, the one that is created for us. And then once you add them to the asset pack file, they'll exist in this blocks view, and then you just can just drag them into your game, just like that. Okay. So now let's look at this asset pack.json here. We double click that. Now we open it, and we can see all the files in this asset pack. So we have our level scene file in our asset pack, and we have these images. So now we can use these images once they're added to the asset pack. So you gotta remember to add any images you create here to the asset pack by selecting the image, and then when you get the option here to add it to the asset pack. So you can probably do it a different way too, perhaps not, but definitely this way, you can just have this option here. And then here you can add file from the asset pack view itself. Then you can pick, I think all the files are there. So I don't think there's anything that we can essence all of the ones we have are already there. So let's delete this dino. You can also delete from the asset pack. And now theoretically, I gotta do image, dino. So there it is. It goes to show all files. So for our character, let's go to this tutorial here. We can skip all of that. I'm gonna use the level.js scene. We've added assets. Now we don't put it into the public folder, we did in the assets folder. And we're not using this tile sheet, we're using individual PNGs. Right, okay. Okay. So now let's just add the dude to show you how that goes. We already mostly did it, but you can see here, we find this dude, the facing forward, right here. Here's our player. We can zoom out. So this is the frame of the game. This right here. Okay. All right. So now we have this guy. So you don't write any code for this. And if I save here, you'll see in level.js, it's done for us. Code we would have otherwise written. And if you go here, you can give it a different name if you wanted to. This is would be the variable name. So let's call this player. Save. When you save the scene, it'll generate the code for you. And now let's go back to level.js, and you see there was a variable we call player. Let me just go back here. If you do scope, select player, You do scope, and if you do the scope to class, let's say, save, go here, it'll be this dot player created for you, and then const player, this dot player gets this player variable. So now you can access this dot player from other code in your file here that you write yourself. You'll have to write some code, or quite a bit of it, for your custom game functionality, just not any of this setup code that you would normally have to do in the create method. So we have this character. I think we're going to probably give it some animation. So to do animations, we can always look at this documentation here at help.phasereditor2d. I think if you were on the Phaser Editor 2D site, you would go to support, help, Phaser Editor 2D help, and you get to the same place. Let's just close that. So here we are. So now we want to look at animations. And so you have to create these animation file and then add your specific frames to the animation. So let's see if I remember how to do this. If not, we'll refer back. So let's go to Assets, New, Animations file, and we're going to name this. Let's name this Player Animations. We'll put it in Assets. Okay, so let's double click this. Oh, it's already open. So with the player animations.json open, this is the file we just created. We can right click here when it's open and do add animation. Let's give it a name. So now our player has, it can move up, down, left, right, and then be idle in all those situations as well. So let's just do, let's actually check here. Down idle. So let's do down idle. Down idle, accept. And we're going to pick this for down idle. Not too big. Let's shrink me. I don't need to be so big. Select. So this is the down idle animation. So let's save. Okay, it's saved. Add animation. So now let's do down walk. Accept. So now down walk starts with this frame, then does this frame, and then does that frame. Select. And there it goes. Now you can adjust the frame rate, maybe 10. Actually, what is code supposed to say? These are all the idles. 10. Great. So 10, no delay, repeat. You can change these settings as you like. But I think in our example here, we're only doing 10 frame rate and then repeat forever. Now let's do another one. So we're going to do up idle. And then up idle is this one. Select. There it is, save. Add new animation. Let's go up, walk. And then up walk is this, like this, select, save, up walk. Okay, so we're just making some right animation, so you can also click this add animation here. We're gonna go right idle. Accept. Right idle is this guy. Press A. Right walk, which is going to be these three. Select. Let's go to right walk over here. Let's change this frame rate to 10. Now I'm going to save this file. Now we want to add this file to the asset pack like everything else we've done. So click import animation 1. So we've got one animation selected. Import animation to the asset pack JSON file. Go here. We'll see there is a player animations in the asset pack now. Now let's go here to scene, and you see this create method, right? So we're going to want to do some things and create ourselves. Specifically for this test, we're going to play one of these animations just to make sure that it's working. What we can do in the scene here is specify a different create method. So let's say editor create. Let's save this, go back to level.js. So it has replaced the create method it had with editor create. That means we can go here, make our own create method in our user code area, and then call editor create so that all our creation code happens, and then we can access this .player dot, oh, it's an image. So let's change that, save. Let's go here. We're going to delete this. And what we're going to do is go add new object and pick a sprite. So you can add text, container, image, lists. We'll go over that later. Text, tile sprites. Let's do a sprite. So we're going to create a sprite. Then we're going to give it a texture. So here in the inspector, there's various, let's say components, but not your own component. These are built-in phaser components. So you can transform them, add them to list. You can add more user components here. Adjust the origin, all that stuff. So this is the texture. So let's go here, select a texture, and we're going to use this one, select. So now he's visible. Now let's save, let's go here to level.js again. And yes, we need to specify again, that this is the player. And then the method is class. Save that, and then save that. Save that. Let's just now save. And so here we go. So this .player.play, and we're going to play down walk. Save. Back to the scene. So now here, this play button is how you can test your game. You press this play button, it'll launch a new browser, and here's our dude walking around here in the part of the screen. Let's zoom out, as you can see. So there we go, right? So now we've basically largely created this scene in the scene editor visually, and then we can play it by pressing this play button. So now we have all the animations. Let's follow this tutorial a bit. We have all of this, and we can do all this without writing any code, as you saw. It's done for us in the animations JSON file loaded by the asset pack. Playing animation, add player movement. Okay, so we're going to use some user components here to handle walking. Now, normally we would have, or at least in this example, we're putting this player update code in the update method of the scene, which is okay. But we have components here, so we can actually create a new component. So let's go here. How should we organize? So we can organize this a bit too. Let's make a new folder. Let's call this components. Now we're going to do new user components file. We'll just call this game components. You could probably group them by different type. We can just do one game components. So similar to the animations file, you can do add component here. You can right click, do add component. Now we've added a component, and you can name it. So we're going to call this movement. It's going to accept sprite, no superclass, no properties. So these properties are going to be editable in the inspector in the scene. Let's save that. So now if we double click this, we can open this file, movement.js. And you see this is generated code as well. And there's the same setup where there's blocks that you can write your own code to add functionality to this component. So what we're going to do here is write our own code to get the cursor. So we need a cursor, right? So first we want access to the scene. So we're going to do const scene this.gameObject.scene. And then with access to the scene, we can do scene.input.keyboard.create cursor keys like we've done before. And now let's put them into this.cursors. So now we're going to want to be able to call update on this. So the recommended way by phaser editor here, let's go to the docs here for user components. Let's see, scene editor, user components. Let's see, somewhere it's going to talk to us about, let's look at this, edit component code. Yep. Components compiler. So we can basically add events is what we're going to look to do. Yep, here it is. So starting updating user components. So the recommended way to do start in Unity, they had this as well, and other engines as well. So when the component starts, it's going to be the first call to update. That's why there's a once here. And then all subsequent calls to update is just the update event from the scene, and then the destroy event. So we're gonna copy this and put this into our code here. And then in our custom code here, create an update method, which is gonna get called each frame update in the scene like we have previously. And then let's go back here to memory match, so we can just actually take this and yep, Command C, let's copy that, paste that into here. Let's fix this a little bit. So now we don't have this dot player, but we have this dot game object is itself the player. So let's do const player. This dot game object is the player. So when we add the component, what it's going to do is pass the game object the component's being added to, which is going to be the player, which is a sprite. Yeah, so that's good. So instead of this dot player, it's going to be player. And let's just change all of this from player to from this dot player to player. Okay. Same deal. Okay. Save. Nope, this is still wrong. Okay, so now we have our basic component code. This is for movement. So now you can see this code doesn't really care who the game object is, who the sprite is, what's going to be controlled. It's just going to be whatever is passed in. And actually, because our player is a arcade physics object, let's actually go to main here and actually add physics. So physics, let's see. Physics, let's see, what is it supposed to be? I've since forgotten the actual, I don't think I have that here. Default arcade. Arcade. That's true. I think that was default. Right, I can do that. Yep, default. Okay, arcade, and then arcade, and we're going to do no gravity because we don't need any. Let's save that. Go back to movement.js here. Now, you see there was no way to make a physics, just go back here, like there's no physics here, but you can just add, you can add the physics components to this sprite. So we're going to do that here in movement. Well, we could actually add another physics component. So let's actually do that. So we'll show you another component here. We're going to add a physics component so you can see how this is used, or how components can be used. Add component, and let's just call this physics. It doesn't really matter. Let's say image. We'll use this for boxes as well later. Save. So physics, open this up. What we've got here is const scene, just like before, this game object scene, and then scene.physics.add.existing this game object. So whatever the object that is this component is being added to, we're going to add physics to this game object. So there's that. Let's save that. And actually, we don't want to do this in start instead of the constructor. We'll leave this for now. When we run into some issues, we'll do that. Okay, so let's go movement. So it's going to assume this guy has the physics component. And we'll do it this way, const body player dot body. And we're going to type this body as phaser.physics.arcade.body. And if not body, so if there is no physics body on this, we're just not going to move at all. Not going to do anything. And so it's going to be body because player does not have set velocity in our situation, since it's not an arcade, it's not a physics sprite. Okay. Alrighty, So that looks all good. Now let's go to our scene here. This is our little player dude. Let's press T, transform, pan, transform. Okay, so now we can add a physics component. Now we're going to add the movement component. Now let's save that. Now I'm pretty sure I have to add these to the asset pack. Let's highlight these, import script to asset pack. Let's save that. Let's run it. There's probably an error. Let's go to inspect. Let's see what the error. Canary property events of undefined. Let's look here. That's right. So one of the things with copying code is sometimes it doesn't give you some of that static analysis, which is being worked on. So by the time you see this video, you may actually get a version where you can turn on some more code checking by Monaco editor. So it's not this.scene, save, run. Here we go. And I'm moving. You can see it's moving. And we did this with components instead of adding code to our game scene, which is cleaner as you're not polluting the scene with things that have really nothing to do with the scene. Moving an individual character is not really the scene's job. The scene's job is to organize where all the things are and maybe pass messages around. So it's definitely better that we have it in a movement component. Now, which of course means if we add another player, we can just drop this component onto that player and also have it move around. Of course, then you'll be moving two characters around with the same keys. That'll be a problem, but you get the idea that with these components, they can be reused across multiple game objects. So we did that. Great, copy that code. Okay, so that is it for part 1 here. In the next video, we're going to go into part 2. And part 2, we're going to, what are we doing in part 2? We're going to make some boxes in part 2 and do some depth sorting. So we'll show you that in part 2. Come back for that.